I escaped my abusive parents in the dead of night with nothing but a backpack and a shattered heart. I thought that was the end, but it was only the beginning. When I exposed their secrets to the world, I had no idea the chaos and healing it would unleash. Growing up as the youngest child, I learned quickly to stay quiet, to only speak when spoken to. I didn't want to be like my older sister, Millie, who always stood up and spoke out, especially when our dad was being cruel. Every time he hurt me or my brother Evan, Millie couldn't just sit back. She always called it out. I remember this one trip to Florida when I was around 12. I was wearing jean shorts, Evan was 13, and Millie was 15. Out of nowhere, my dad slapped my thigh and told me I was getting fat, even though I was a size 2. Then he tugged on my shorts and told me to cover up. I gave Millie a warning look, silently begging her not to say anything. She was quiet, until that last comment. "What the hell did Dad just say?" she snapped, looking right at Mom. But instead of backing her up, my mom shushed her. Suddenly, everyone in the room, including me, started yelling at Millie. We told her she was being dramatic and always causing problems. Looking back, I feel sick about it. But at the time, I truly believed it was her fault for speaking up, not our parents for being abusive. That's how deeply I'd been brainwashed. My parents had twisted things so much that I thought it was normal for them to treat us that way, and wrong for Millie to challenge it. That same night, Evan did what he thought was his only option. He forced a smile, pretending like none of it bothered him. But our dad wasn't fooled. He screamed at Evan and threatened to hit him. Millie didn't sleep in her own bed that night. She slept with us, laying protectively beside Evan in case Dad tried anything while we were asleep. But as the years went by, things got worse. Evan changed. He used to be so kind. He'd cover me and Millie with blankets if we fell asleep on the couch, and he always called us pretty. But as Dad's abuse got more intense, Evan hardened. By 16, he was just another angry man in the house. Millie, though, she never changed. She never stopped fighting back. And me? I kept being the one who cried anytime someone raised their voice. This pattern didn't stop until Millie's senior year. The night before her SATs, we were all sitting at the dinner table. She was shaking, nervous. School meant everything to her. She asked Evan to stop chewing with his mouth open. "You're gonna fail your SATs and be a damn loser for the rest of your life," Evan snapped. Millie broke. She ran upstairs in tears. Dad started screaming so loud the walls shook. And me? I stayed behind, texting her to ask why she always had to make everything worse. I blamed her for ruining the peace. After that, we barely saw her. She was always at her friends' places, sometimes sneaking out to parties. And I didn't reach out either. In my head, she had wrecked the family. But the more she stayed away, the more I realized how wrong I was. Because the minute she left, I became the new punching bag. Dad screamed at me constantly. No matter what I did, it wasn't enough. Evan? He was too scary for Dad to mess with anymore. But me, I was easy. I started to understand what Millie had been going through. And even though she was gone most of the time, Millie still stood up for me whenever she came home. She'd argue with our parents, call out their behavior, and I didn't even appreciate it then. One day, everything exploded. Dad saw Evan put wet clothes on top of Mom's clean laundry. He started yelling at him, furious. But then suddenly, he called me into the room. "You're an ugly piece of trash who can't even control your own brother," he growled. I was frozen. I didn't even have time to react before he shoved me into the coffee table. I hit the ground, shaking and crying. I tried to get up, but he kicked the back of my legs, knocking me down again. "Get the hell out of here!" he screamed. I didn't wait. I ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and grabbed my phone. I called the only person I could think of, Millie. She answered, and her voice was so calm, so soft, it made me feel safe. I was still sitting on the cold bathroom floor, crying, when Dad started banging on the door, yelling for me to come clean the kitchen. I didn't know what to do, so I hung up without a word. 20 minutes later, I heard the front door open quietly. Millie walked in, with her huge, muscular boyfriend. I looked at her with fear, afraid of what Dad might do if he saw us together. But she understood. She grabbed my hand like she was already planning our escape. Her eyes told me everything was going to be okay. Somehow, she convinced me to leave. We went to an apartment I didn't even know she had. She tucked me into bed and asked me to tell her everything. But I couldn't. I didn't want to relive it. All I could think about was the Halloween party I had planned for the next day. She nodded, understanding, and ordered McDonald's for us. But I never made it to that party. The next day, I got a message from Mom telling me I had to come home, that Millie had caused enough damage to the family. And I believed her. I walked back into that house, thinking I had done something wrong. But the second I stepped inside, Dad hit me so hard I blacked out. His hand cracked against my face, and the world went dark. When I woke up, I was on the floor, head pounding, the taste of blood in my mouth. That was the moment everything changed. "I can't stay here," I whispered, my voice stronger than I expected. "I want to leave." The words floated in the air like they didn't belong to me, but they did, and they felt like freedom. "Good," Millie replied. Her voice was calm but serious. "We need to be smart about this. Only take what's important. Clothes, documents, anything you can't replace. Nothing heavy, just one backpack." Her words were sharp and clear, like she'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. My heart raced. This was real. We were really going to do this. And for the first time in my life, I felt hope. My voice came out as a whisper, dry, shaky, but strangely freeing. "Friday, tell them you're going to a friend's house for a school project. Say it's a sleepover. I'll pick you up 2 blocks from your house at 7 p.m. Can you do that?" Millie's eyes locked onto mine. They were sharp, intense, like she was staring into my soul. She always had this way of making you feel like the only person in the world when she looked at you. "Yes." I didn't even think twice. My voice sounded so sure, it surprised even me. "And don't tell anyone, not your friends, not your teachers, no one." The way she stressed that last word made me nod slowly. I knew this wasn't a game. This was real. After we hung up, I just sat on my bed, staring at the wall, tracing the little cracks in the paint with my eyes. 3 more days. I could survive 3 more days in this house. I had to. The next morning, everything felt the same, except me. Dad barked orders like usual. Mom acted like everything was perfectly normal. Evan shot me a glare from across the table. But I had a plan now. And that changed everything. Even the cereal tasted the same. But I didn't. I wasn't trapped anymore. At school, I waited until the end of English class, then walked up to Mr. Parker while the room emptied out. "Hey, would you be okay being a reference for a summer job application?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked surprised but smiled. "Of course. When do you need it by?" "Maybe next week. I'll let you know." I just needed someone outside my family who could vouch for me. Someone who saw me as a smart, responsible student, not some rebellious daughter. That afternoon, I started preparing. Quietly, carefully. I took my birth certificate from the filing cabinet while Mom chatted on the phone. The paper felt fragile and important, like it held my whole life in ink and creases. I hid my school ID and the $43 I had saved from birthdays inside a sock. Bit by bit, I packed things I'd need for a new life. What to take, what to leave. I even found my old iPod and began recording my dad's angry rants, proof of everything I'd endured. I covered the red recording light with tape. Each time I hit record, my heart pounded, but I knew I was doing the right thing. By Thursday night, sleep was impossible. Every creak in the house made me jump. The wind against my window sounded like someone trying to get in. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, imagining the worst. What if they knew? What if Dad caught me leaving? Friday morning, I played it cool. Went through my usual routine, school, then home, then chores. But inside, I was shaking. At dinner, I brought up the fake project. Sarah needs help with her science presentation. Her mom said I could sleep over so we can finish it. I kept my eyes on my plate, pushing spaghetti around with my fork. The lie slid out easier than expected. Mom's eyes narrowed. Which Sarah? Sarah Chen, from biology. You met her mom at the open house last year. It was true. We weren't close, but the details added credibility. Dad paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. I don't remember saying you could go. You did, I lied, turning to Mom. Remember when I asked Tuesday? A long silence. Finally, Mom nodded. Oh, right, but be back by noon. You have chores. I nodded and hid my relief. It worked. At 6:30, I slung my backpack over my shoulder. It felt heavy, not just with clothes and essentials, but with every part of my life I was leaving behind. The iPod was safely tucked in my coat pocket. Don't stay up all night giggling, Mom said as I headed to the door. I won't, I replied. Dad didn't even look up from the TV. Evan wasn't home, thank God. I didn't want a goodbye with him. I walked until I turned the corner, then ran. Fast. My heart pounded in my throat. The cool evening air hit my face, carrying the scent of cut grass and someone else's dinner. What if Millie didn't show? What if this was some kind of sick test? Then, at exactly 7 o'clock, a car rolled up beside me. The passenger door swung open. Get in, Millie said. I jumped in and slammed the door. Her car smelled like coffee and her favorite perfume. Before I was even buckled in, she pulled away from the curb. The tires squealed just a little. She was in a hurry. Did anyone follow you? She asked, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I don't think so. I glanced behind us anyway, just to be sure. We're not going to my old place, she said. I found a new apartment. Smaller, but in a secure building. Key card access, buzz-in only. She had thought of everything. What about Jason? I asked. I remembered how huge he looked in our kitchen compared to Dad. We broke up, she said flatly. He said I was too obsessed with our family, told me to move on. She made air quotes bitterly. It was rare to see her lose composure, but I caught a flash of it in her voice. We drove in silence for a while. Each mile that passed, I felt lighter, like I was finally shedding the weight I'd been forced to carry for so long. They're going to be so angry, I said softly. Millie looked at me. Having second thoughts? No, I said. I know what's coming. The guilt, the yelling, the manipulation. Yeah, she said, eyes still on the road. Me too. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a secured building. It was tiny, just 1 bedroom, a bathroom, and a little kitchen living room. But it was clean, cozy, and safe. The cream-colored walls, the blue comforter on the bed. It all felt peaceful, unfamiliar, but in a good way. You take the bedroom, Millie said, tossing my bag on the bed. I'll take the couch. No, I can't. I started, but she waved me off. I work late shifts. We won't even see each other much. I looked around the room. It wasn't much, but it was more than I'd had in years. No yelling, no fear, no walking on eggshells. Thank you, I whispered. Millie smiled gently. You're my sister. I wasn't going to leave you there. She gave my shoulder a squeeze and turned away quickly, but not before I saw the tears in her eyes. That night, I slept better than I had in months, maybe years. No footsteps in the hallway, no doors slamming. Just the soft hum of the fridge and Millie typing on her laptop. The peace lasted until 10:07 the next morning. My phone exploded with texts. Where are you? Sarah's mom says you never showed. Answer me now! Your father is furious. I showed Millie, my hands shaking. Then more messages came, non-stop. Turn it off, she said. We knew this would happen. I hesitated, then sent one final text. I'm safe. I'm not coming back. Then I powered off the phone. The silence after was terrifying and freeing. What now? I asked, as sunlight poured into the kitchen. Now we wait. They'll get worse before they give up. She was right. That evening, voicemails started pouring into her phone. My mom's voice went from threats to sobs and back again. Dad's voice came last. "If you don't bring her back, you'll regret it. Both of you will." I shivered. Some fears were harder to let go of. Millie deleted every message without blinking. It was like shutting a door and locking it forever. The next day, a message came from Evan. "Don't expect anything from us when he dies. No explanation, no context, just emotional ammo." I showed Millie. "He's just trying to guilt you. Probably Dad put him up to it. Remember when Dad said his heart was giving out just because Evan wanted to go to summer camp?" She said it casually, but I saw the way she bit her lip afterward. Even Millie wasn't completely sure. Even she was afraid. A part of me kept wondering if something really was wrong, but I pushed that thought away. We'd been through false alarms before, and I didn't want to panic again. On Monday morning, Millie helped me enroll at a new school. We used her address and said she was my guardian. Not totally true, but the school didn't ask many questions. The building was much bigger than my old school. The hallways were wide and full of light. As we walked through the office, no one stared. I was just another face in the crowd. Just a new kid, no one special. As we walked back to the apartment, I couldn't help but ask, what if they come looking for me? That question had been sitting heavy on my chest all day. The sidewalk beneath us was cracked, little weeds pushing up through like they were fighting to survive. "They might," Millie said honestly, "but if they do, they'd have to explain why you left. And I don't think they want that kind of attention." What she said made sense, but it didn't really calm my nerves. I kept checking over my shoulder, scanning the street for my dad's furious face or my mom's cold glare. That night, they found a new way to get to me. My phone buzzed constantly, messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Aunts, uncles, distant cousins, even old neighbors were suddenly concerned about me. "Your poor mother is worried sick. Your dad says you've been hanging out with the wrong people. They say you ran away to live with a boy, that Millie pushed you to rebel." They were painting me as the villain, rewriting everything that happened to fit their story. The guilt came back like it never left. Years of emotional conditioning made it hard not to believe them. "They're trying to control the story," Millie said after reading some of the messages. "They're scared people will find out the truth, and if they do, that perfect family image will fall apart." I looked at the screen, my stomach churning. So many texts, all saying the same thing, making me feel like I was the bad guy. "No one's going to believe us," I said quietly. That thought hit hard. What if, after everything, we still ended up being the ones blamed? Millie was silent for a moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "Show me those recordings again." Her voice was sharp, focused, like she had a plan. I grabbed the iPod and played a few clips. My dad's yelling filled the room, him screaming about how much of a disappointment I was. Then the sound of something slamming, me hitting the coffee table. My mom's cold voice followed, telling me to clean up my own blood. Even through the tiny speaker, the violence was clear. The fear in my voice was impossible to ignore. "People will believe this," Millie said with determination. "We just have to be smart about who we show it to." Her belief gave me strength. Maybe we could get people to see the truth. We started with Aunt Dorothy, my mom's sister. She was always a little kinder than the rest. She lived a few states away and only saw us on holidays, but she'd give thoughtful gifts and ask how we were doing. We sent her a short email, just the basics, along with one audio clip. Her reply came the next day. "I always suspected something was off. Your mom's been covering for your dad's temper for years. What do you need?" It wasn't a lot, but it meant everything. A small crack in their perfect image, a light slipping through. Next was Margaret, my mom's old friend. She had 2 daughters my age and had always treated me kindly. She even once gave me $20 in secret when my dad refused to pay for a school trip. Then we reached out to Bruce, my dad's cousin. I remembered him pulling my dad aside at a family barbecue, furious after my dad yelled at Evan in front of everyone. He'd gripped my dad's arm and whispered something intense. My dad was quiet for the rest of the day. Some people never replied. Some were shocked. But a few offered support. Some offered money. Some offered a place to stay. Some shared resources. Each message that showed care felt like a small win. Proof that we weren't making it all up. Proof that what we'd lived through wasn't normal. "See?" Millie said. "Not everyone is like them." She showed me a message from Mom's old college roommate who said she cut ties with our mom years ago because of her behavior. Knowing others had seen through the lies was strangely comforting, but it didn't take long for the backlash to begin. My parents doubled down, spreading their own version of events. They told anyone who'd listen that I was troubled, that I was making everything up, that Millie had always been a bad influence. They called in favors, spread rumors, told stories about how their happy family was falling apart because of two rebellious girls. Then, one night, the phone rang. We were cleaning up dinner when Millie answered on speaker. It was my dad's brother. "You need to stop this now," he said coldly. "You're tearing the family apart with your lies." He sounded just like my dad. Same tone, same quiet threat underneath every word. "They're not lies," Millie snapped back. "And this family was broken long before we said anything." Her voice didn't shake. She stood tall, her shoulders squared, even though he couldn't see her. He hung up on her. The dial tone echoed in the room. Millie set the phone down slowly. Her hands were shaking just a little. Even now, even after everything, standing up to them was still hard. It had been 2 weeks since I left home. I hadn't gone back to school yet. The new school was fine. No one knew me. No one asked questions. But I felt like I was just drifting, walking through each day in a fog. The classrooms were unfamiliar. I could barely remember the teachers' names. I moved from class to class, barely present. I took notes, answered when called on, but inside, I felt like a ghost. At night, I had terrifying dreams. In them, my dad found me and dragged me back home. I'd try to run, but couldn't. I'd scream, but no sound came out. I'd wake up breathless, tangled in my sheets like they were holding me down. Sometimes Millie would already be by my side, holding a glass of water like she'd sensed my fear even in sleep. One evening, I said what had been on my mind. "Maybe we should tell someone, go to the police or something." We were sitting on the couch, a sitcom playing quietly in the background. Millie looked up from her laptop. "We could, but without proof of recent abuse, they might not do anything. And if it doesn't work." She didn't finish, but I knew what she meant. If we reported them and nothing happened, things would get worse, much worse. "What about the recordings?" I asked, glancing at the iPod on the table. It looked harmless, but it held hours of pain. "They help," she said softly. "But the system doesn't always work the way it should, especially when parents seem normal to the outside world." I nodded, remembering how good my dad was at playing the perfect father, how my mom could turn on the sweet, caring act in a second. They fooled everyone, teachers, neighbors, even friends. "What do we do then?" I asked. Millie closed her laptop. "We keep gathering evidence, and we tell the truth, loudly, to as many people as possible." That night, I lay awake thinking about other kids like me, the ones hiding bruises under sleeves, the ones too scared to speak, kids with no Millie to save them. I thought about the ones still stuck, maybe even thinking they deserved it. I walked out to the living room. Millie was still up, scrolling on her phone. I stood in the doorway and said, "I want to tell our story, all of it, publicly." She looked up, startled. "Are you sure? Once it's out there, you can't take it back." "I'm sure," I said, and I meant it. For the first time in forever, I felt certain. The next day, I sat down and wrote everything, from my earliest memories of Dad's rage to the night he knocked me out cold. I wrote about Mom's denial, Evan's cruelty, and Millie's strength. I didn't use real names, but anyone who knew us would recognize the story. When I read it to Millie, she had tears in her eyes. "It's perfect, but are you absolutely sure?" I nodded. "I want other kids to know they're not alone, and I want Mom and Dad to know they can't control me anymore. I created a new social media account and posted the story, along with a few of the clearest audio clips. Then, I sent the link to every relative and every friend of my parents. I hovered over the send button, took a deep breath, and clicked. No turning back. The response was instant. Messages poured in, some angry, some kind. Strangers shared their own stories. My post was shared hundreds of times. For the first time, I wasn't just a victim, I was a voice. Then came the fallout. Mom's church friends stopped coming around. Dad lost a side job after his boss recognized his voice in one of the recordings. Evan dropped out of school. Aunt Dorothy said he was disappearing for days. Their perfect little image was falling apart. "You ruined everything," Mom texted me late one night. "Hope you're happy." I didn't reply, because for once I understood. Their happiness had always depended on my silence, and I wasn't staying quiet anymore. A month later, Millie and I were eating dinner when someone started pounding on the apartment door. I jumped, fork falling to the floor. Millie froze. The pounding came again, harder. "Who is it?" she called, not moving. Her voice was steady, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Open this door right now." My dad's voice, drunk, angry, familiar. My blood ran cold. "How did he find us?" I whispered. Millie grabbed her phone. "I don't know, but he's not getting in." Later, we found out Cousin Roy had seen us at the grocery store and told Dad. He'd always been Dad's drinking buddy. I guess loyalty runs deep when it's soaked in alcohol. The pounding continued. So did the threats. I flinched with every bang. Millie called the building manager, who promised to call the police. "He's making a scene," she whispered. "In front of everyone. Let them see who he really is." Then we heard other voices. The managers, then the police. The shouting stopped. We waited, frozen. Finally, the manager knocked gently. "He's gone," he said. "Police escorted him out. Issued a trespass warning. Are you two okay?" "Yeah," Millie said. Her voice cracked. We packed that night. Again. Essentials only. Again. The next morning, Millie called in sick and we moved. New apartment, new neighborhood, same hope for safety. The place was even smaller, but it had a deadbolt and a peephole. Small things that meant everything. "We can't run forever," I said. "We won't have to," Millie promised. But I wasn't so sure. Dad had lost everything, his pride, his power, and we were the reason why. 2 months later, I got a message from Evan. "You were right. I'm sorry." It was sent at 2:17 a.m. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the reply. Part of me wanted to reach out, to the brother who once tucked me in and told me I was pretty. But another part remembered the shouting, the cruelty, the way he watched and did nothing. I deleted the message. Maybe one day I'd forgive him, but not today. The nightmares started to fade. I got a job at a bookstore. I started therapy. I made friends. I stopped flinching at loud voices. One day, I realized I wasn't wearing Mom's necklace anymore. I couldn't remember when I took it off, but I knew what it meant. I wasn't theirs anymore. "You stand taller now," Millie said one night as we did dishes. "You look people in the eye." I smiled. I learned from the best. The messages from my parents stopped. The last one from Mom simply said, "I hope someday you'll forgive us." I didn't answer. If forgiveness came, it would be on my terms. On the 1-year anniversary of the day I left, Millie surprised me with a small cake. A single candle flickered in the middle. "What's this for?" I asked, my throat tight. "Your Independence Day," she said. 1 year of freedom. I made a wish and blew out the candle. A wish for more years like this, full of healing and hope. The next day, I sat at my computer and wrote again. Not about pain, but about recovery. About rising from the ashes. I titled it, "The Voice They Couldn't Silence," and I hit publish. The views climbed fast. Comments poured in. One stood out. "I never told anyone what happened at my house. Your story made me realize I'm not crazy. I'm showing it to my school counselor tomorrow. Thank you, I showed it to Millie, tears in my eyes. This is why I did it. She squeezed my shoulder. You're braver than I was. I looked at her. You saved me, in every way that counts. She smiled. And look where we are. Our apartment was small, but it was safe. It was filled with light, books, plants, and peace. No fear, no yelling, just freedom.